My name is Jacqui Cooper. This is Matt Rogers. My background's education and law, and I'm the CEO of the Blockchain Legal Institute. And the other project that we are doing is the Digital Asset Regulatory Authority. So today we're going to be talking about trends in regulation and compliance. Now, one of my favorite authors is Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, and I'm going to read a quote because I think it sets the tone. When you see that in order to produce, you need to obtain permission from men who produce nothing, when you see that money is flowing to those who deal, not in goods but in favors, when you see that men get richer by graft and by pull than by work, and your laws don't protect you against them, but protect them against you, when you see corruption being rewarded and honesty being a self-sacrifice, you may know that your society is doomed. So hopefully that's not the direction that we're going.
Okay, so that's relating a bit to compliance and regulation, right? This is discussing kind of a more of a, let's say, heavy-handed, almost communist regime, which Ayn Rand sort of came from. That's why these fundamental ideas that she shares come across so strongly. But we know there's two sides to this issue, right? We have regulation that can be a tremendous burden, but we also have regulation that can be quite helpful. So the reason we have the beautiful observatory in Los Angeles here is because I was there recently, a few days ago, when I was, having a little picnic, and we were up at the observatory, beautiful place. I just want to set the scene and tell a personal story, right? To keep everyone engaged. So some of the people we were visiting with were from South Korea. And if you know the history of some of the most recent history, that was a place where a lot of investment was going on by young people. That was a place where a lot of Ethereum-derived tokens were being shilled 24 hours a day, and a lot of wealth was probably being made. At the same time, there was a lot of exposure to things like Terra Luna and a number of other tokens that we know are down either 90 or 99%. So we have a couple tragedies as the flip side of that story, right? If things aren't regulated, people might take big losses, and big losses result in depression and stress that can carry over and affect your family. So a couple stories here. 3 family members were found dead in South Korea around the same period as the Luna crash, and the families, have to take these drastic measures to deal with the literal depression, social anxiety, and maybe shame that they might have to deal with their families because they got into risky investments in an unregulated space, right? So that's the flip side of the coin. The third side of the two-sided coin, not necessarily, it's the flip side of this. We don't need to single out and vilify crypto when traditional finance has the same kind of problems, right? You might hear about a banker who, unalived themselves in Manhattan after, the 2008 financial crisis. So we're not trying to vilify crypto here, we're just presenting the reasons, the pros and cons behind regulation and compliance. So let's keep rolling. I also want to go quick because Caitlin Long's going to be up soon, and we don't want anyone to miss that.
So as many of you already know, because many of you are in this industry, regulations happen in a variety of ways. We have our Constitution, we have the federal side, we have the state side, we have agencies that create guidance and regulations. But a lot of times the regulations come in regard to scandals. So it's really in a reaction instead of thinking through ahead of time. And as a result of that, because of the fact that it's a reaction, it ends up being difficult for entrepreneurs to plan because of the fact that they were in compliance at one point, and then there's a reaction, and then it changes. And this is historic. It's not just, now. I mean, in the Department of Justice, they had a memorandum that deals with compliance. In fact, a lot of the what it states is that corporations need to have compliance officers, needs to have a compliance plan, and if you don't, and something happens, and if you don't have something in place, then you're going to be more liable than not if you have something in place. So there's all these different mitigating circumstances that can help reduce your liability, but you don't always know what those factors are until it happens. So regulation by scandal is a challenge because it's not planned. Now we have, on the state side, different states that are planning, like Wyoming, and that's the other thing I would definitely want to say, thank you to Wyoming, thank you to Steve, thank you to everyone who's here for this conference, because this is setting the tone for what needs to happen in our community.
I want to jump in here with a point on the regulation by scandal. or things like being reactionary versus being a stoic, right? If anyone wants to like kind of remember the whole stoic philosophy, it's you're not really moved. You're not going to react initially. You're going to take your time. You're going to contemplate your decisions. So what do we have here in the United States? And what is the history? It's really this history of regulation by scandal. You can look at most of the recent bipartisan, fully adopted, enthusiastic bills that go through, and they often are a result of a scandal, and it can be a terrorist attack, it can be a financial crisis. But that's really the tone that we have here in the United States. And of course, the better tone is to be proactive or to be a stoic in the face of things like that. So let's look at a little bit of like what we face here in the United States. We face not only a multiple states with varying policies, regulation, and compliance standards, but we also face agencies, and you may know this. The IRS describes digital assets as property. The SEC describes them as securities. The CFTC describes them as commodities. And then you have things like how in the United States regulation certainly protects the incumbents, right? That's just kind of what it's there for. You can look at that. Let's just point out what's going on with here in this great state with Custodia, dealing with a heavy-handed, SEC and a Federal Reserve that wants to protect its interests and not have, a exposure to crypto. These things are being called things like choke point 2.0, right? Choke point 1.0 was when the government wanted to restrict gun manufacturers' access to banking. Now we see the exact same thing here, where crypto-adjacent companies are not going to be given, or what they should by statute be given, which is things like master licenses with the SEC. So very interesting. This was a few days ago. A very interesting admission in a court case where the SEC actually said they regret the confusion that they may have caused. Very interesting quote. That was just from a few days ago. And I want to draw your attention to another thing that we all kind of like know if we've participated in the NFT or the art market. Let's transport ourselves to a gallery. I'm the gallerist. I've got 100 pieces of art right here. They're all the same. And maybe they have a serial number at the bottom, and they're all printed on paper, just like a security. And I'm telling you, buy this because this is going to go up. Okay, so this matter came before, the United States, and it was basically settled that galleries presenting these financial instruments being billed as financial instruments, being billed as investments, being sold as investments, and marketing investments, well, that's okay. But our NFT marketplaces aren't okay. So again, we look at the confusion, and that's sort of what's going on the surface.
But before we even leave there, I mean, and everyone in this room can see it. Recently, in the NFT side, there was another decision that the company, the NFT, is considered security. So again, there's constantly this back and forth, and that's where we need clarity, as everyone knows. And that's the challenge that we have with compliance, because the compliance officers within a company are going to need to try to anticipate what is the next step and where is the regulation going. And that's part of the challenge we have right now. So compliance is starting to break the bank. Doesn't have to, but in fact it is, because when you as an entrepreneur, Steve said start a business. Well, you can start a business for sure. You can create a budget, but part of that budget is going to have to be the legal, the compliance, and all the other pieces that new entrepreneurs have no clue. The other question that I have too is digital assets and innovative technology is changing. Our legal system is a very old model. To be able to innovate with our laws for the tech that's coming, to be able to look at the intellectual property, the copyrights and contracts, the system is very rigid, but our innovative technology people are not. So that's the challenge that we have, and that's why compliance is so costly.
I think this slide is really interesting. The Secretary of State brought up, and you may be aware that the United States payments on interest is $1 trillion, right? At some point, the returns just aren't there. If you start to look at the level and the trend in regulation and compliance and the expense that is bringing and the destruction that might be bringing to things like research and development, imagine these massive amounts of money we're going into researching cleaner rivers, or fairer opportunities or, greater equality or economics for people. Instead, just like an interest payment, they're going to service a certain need, going back to the Ayn Rand quote, it's there just to sort of absorb or that we need to get their permission. So we start spending all of our time and our resources to be compliant, and that's really a cycle of doom. Maybe by next year we'll have more information on that, but I think that there's some really shocking information there related in those numbers. So Jacqui, walk us through the first part of this, and then I'll do the...
So we were just looking at the United States and Canada. This doesn't even deal with Europe or South America or Africa or anywhere else, but $61 billion is the cost of compliance. And when you break it down, it's broken down into data processing, legal, consulting, accounting, auditing, and personnel. That doesn't even take into the educational costs that it takes to have professional continuing education development for your lawyers or even your accountants. And then on the auditing side, you have the data privacy side, and you have the security side, the cybersecurity side. And most of us are not just operating in one state. We're not just operating in the United States. So if you're operating in Europe, you're going to have to take into account all the regulations that are overseas and make sure that you're in compliance. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to do business there. So these are different costs that a business, a startup, has to take into account.
That's right. So that $61 billion number, that's, let's say, North America. So that's Canada and the United States, right? You can extrapolate from there what it might be like to the world. In fact, we already showed that $206 billion number, I believe. So, that's the hard costs. What are the other costs? What are the ancillary costs? What is the cost to innovation? What's the cost to the economy, right? So a lot of times, regulators and economists, we're going to create economic development through this new regulation. This new spending, in fact, there's some complaints now about this broadband bill that, was put forward in the United States here under this current administration that was $42 billion to connect people to broadband. 0 people in the United States, with the expense of that $42 billion, have been connected to broadband. So that's just an example of how the spending can get out of control, but the actual results aren't there, and when you really extrapolate, there's a tremendous cost. So this is the National Association of Manufacturers. If you're manufacturing something today, imagine all the compliance. You've got the ISO stuff, you've got the NIST stuff, you've got HR, you've got legal. Now someone got hurt, someone ate the toy has toxins in it. So in general, it's just been stated that these costs to our economy are really extensive. And then last note, if you're ever applying for federal grants, in fact, this is a little bit of a history lesson as well, compliance was a matter and an issue for people that wanted to deal with the government. If you wanted to get a government contract, you had to be compliant. That was kind of the history of the recent history, however, is much different than you're going to see in these charts. But federal funding is going to be sidelined because people aren't even compliant enough to receive the funds. And you know what happens? Sometimes the funds just end up in limbo. It's like burning your crypto. It's getting sent to a treasury somewhere, and no one can access that because they are not compliant. So these are some of the big issues that we see by the numbers, and we've got a couple more numbers here. I'll go quickly through this one. So this is by industry. Again, like I said, if you're a student or if you're a business person, you're really going to want to know what's going on. If you're a chief financial officer or an executive, you're really going to want to know this trend. There's an 11.2% compound annual growth rate in compliance, pretty much average across these industries. You can see the bar and the colors really is the ledger there. But trending up, and there's just like the debt, there's no reason to think this is going to stop. Right? It seems to be in motion, and there's no reason that it's going to stop. That's why I would advise young people, research being a compliance officer. They're hiring everywhere at all companies. All right, keeping it moving. We got a lot to cover here. This is some information that we're just going to share when we do things like, look for trends. We can get that information from conferences like this. We can certainly get it when we speak to experts, but I'm going to share some stuff from Google Trends, and we're going to go really quickly. Hopefully this is entertaining. These are trend lines. The trend is being tracked by Google, trends.google.com. If you've never used it, you can Google your own name, you can Google your business, you can Google your industry. You can see if searches for your industry are going up and down over the course of what here is about 18 years, 20 years. So 2004 to 2024. We can see that things like the search for inflation was quite steady. However, over here, it peaked and it's still going up. We can see that favorably, perhaps for the Federal Reserve, back during the financial crisis, searches for the Federal Reserve were really popping off, but today they're not. I'm sure they're quite happy with that because, there's a lot of problems that if there was some scrutiny of the Federal Reserve, we may be having different conversations about economics in the United States, but the trend for them would show quite favorable. No one really cares. So let's keep going. You may have heard things like, oh, Solana is going to eclipse Ethereum. I don't really, care. And those two blockchains and the tokens and the economics around them may be very problematic. I wouldn't necessarily advise investing in any of those. This is not financial advice at all. But, you can go and look at the trends. This is the psychic energy of the people of the planet, and this is what they're searching for through Google, and those are the trend lines. Now, interestingly, we see compliance trending up. That's the whole subject of this talk, right? And we see that, compliance is trending up. Regulation maybe, quote-unquote, trending down, but here in the last 2 or 3 years, that as well is trending up.
Before you leave there, though,
okay.
Part of the challenge with trends is that it, just like the NFT had a trend and it became popular, and then all of a sudden it didn't. So with compliance, when there is a concern about consumers, about protection, about crimes and finance, that's where the trends are going. So, with the blockchain, with all these protocols, I love the innovation, but right now the laws and the regulators are going to be looking at what are these blockchains doing, especially because of the fact that if any of the tokens or the digital assets are then going to be used in a traditional market, they are going to be looking to see, okay, now how do we regulate that? Because we don't understand it. So if we don't understand it, it's fear-based. So we need to know more about it. We need to control it. And that's the problem, because innovators need more freedom, but compliance is not about freedom. Okay.
So happy to see that searches for Wyoming is steady and trending slightly up. Everyone involved in economics and real estate probably in this great state would want to, look at that information and base some of their decisions around it. Also, you can see that things like NFTs, a lot of young people lost a lot of money on NFTs all over the world. People were buying NFTs that are absolute trash right now, and let's be honest, they were buying them because they think they were going to go up. Well, that was quite a pop NFTs had, and you can do your own research on OpenSea and see pretty much everything from the Bored Apes to the mutant apes to the crack smoking apes to all the weird art that was being sold and all the degenerate activity. Well, it's really turned out to be quite worthless and damaging. So this is going to be fun. We're going to ask you to raise your hand, perhaps, okay? So you don't have to, but these are kind of fun questions, and we're going to identify some trends together today. So have you ever used MetaMask? Raise your hand if you've used MetaMask. Okay, people have used MetaMask. Have you used Phantom? Have you used a Phantom wallet? Okay, a few less people, but that would be some of the people that might be in the Solana ecosystem. Okay, have you ever bought an NFT? Okay, all right. Have you ever created your own NFT or your own token? Anyone? Okay, all right, I like that. I've done the same. There's pros and cons. I consider it a learning experience to do something like that. Mm-hmm. So have you ever used DeFi? We talk a lot about DeFi. We talk about decentralization. Have people used it? Okay, DeFi, interesting. DeFi's got some hits. I have other questions that maybe are less relevant, like have you used a blockchain explorer? Here's a question. Is this your first crypto conference? Oh, wow, okay. Oh, excellent, 2 of you. Fantastic. And would you attend another one? Okay, maybe you, sir, on the fence, maybe a yes. Okay, going once, going twice. All right, so some other fun questions I like to ask in a bigger room where I know people have been exposed to the industry a lot longer. I start asking, have you bought Bitcoin prior to the year, raise your hand if you bought Bitcoin prior to the year 2018. Okay, prior to the year leave your hand up, prior to the year 2017, 2016, people that bought Bitcoin prior to 2016. In 2016, it was chopping around between like 400 and 1,400, I think. It was about 60,000. Okay, prior to 2015, 2014. Okay, well, anyway, we could go all the way back, but the point is you can see maybe more people have bought it recently, less people have bought it in the past. So that's some of the things we like to do as icebreakers and kind of get to know the room. So thank you for participating in that. I know it's not fun to raise your hand, but we got through it. Okay, so this is going to be recommendations and trends we need to go through really fast, so let's go through quickly.
So I know already, because I've met some of you, that you guys have already started some businesses. And as part of starting your businesses, you've had to take into account some of these questions and think through it. So if you start a business, the biggest question is, can you afford or do you have a compliance officer? If you don't have a compliance officer, who's going to be in that role? And are you going to outsource it, or are you going to have it inside the company? And then, I know as an attorney, I won't tell you how many years I've been practicing, but I've been in the blockchain space 9 years. When I started, again, I didn't have any vocabulary. So again, the attorneys need to have background knowledge, and continuing education is needed because most attorneys don't have the tech side, don't have the tech knowledge. Again, with your financial officer, are you educating them, or do they know the questions to ask? So these are all the questions from the perspective of compliance and regulation that have to be budgeted within a company, so that way everyone can stay compliant, because of the fact that, as we talked about before, we're not just operating within one state, we operate across multiple states, and multiple states are passing different rules, so it's not consistent. I mean, there's 24 states have passed the Uniform Commercial Code Amendment for the definition of digital assets, but you still have over 30 states that have different cryptocurrency laws, and then you're not even talking about some of the other laws that deal with other forms of digital assets.
Okay, so going on with trends, these are just some recommendations, and if you're exposed to this is just the facts. You better plan on it, right? A prudent entrepreneurial leader would. So here's some trends in 2024. I'm going to run them down really quick. Then we have some outlook for 2025, and then that's about it. We will try to get some Wyoming T-shirts we were going to give out today, but no one would donate any. And then we'll be done. So the impact of artificial intelligence is kind of like a double-edged sword here. You may know artificial intelligence is extremely helpful with parsing data, understanding data, identifying trends, identifying outliers, commenting on the outliers. It's incredibly useful for things like analysis. At the same time, it presents a tremendous amount of risks. If you run an enterprise and your employees are using one of the top 5 language models, well, they're training their model on your data. That probably is it's literally probably a breach of some of your company's best practices just to be using the thing because of the unknowns and the potential liabilities there. So data protection enhancements, those are things like GDPR. You know that if you're collecting personal data on people and they ask you to delete it, you're going to need to show proof that it's been deleted. There's globally, there's laws that affect businesses that work internationally, and here in the United States, of course, places like California are passing, laws that are make it even harder for us to do business. Now, if you've ever been sued, you know that the data is a big deal. If you have to have a plan, right? You have to have a lot of bases covered when it comes to data privacy. So, along with that, greater cybersecurity focus is a big deal in compliance. If your company, in fact, just a few days ago, I got a notice, maybe some of you did, my data was found in another breach, right? So that's coming from like a Credit Karma type or whatever, some credit analysis that finds my social security and my name in another data breach. Well, you don't want to be that company. And who's going to be the responsible party when something happens and your organization is breached? So these things are becoming more important than ever. Jacqui, you want to hit sustainability and a few others?
Yeah, so the Blockchain Legal Institute is actually hosting a virtual global summit about sustainability in blockchain. And one of the areas is that many companies don't know is that there are laws that have been passed in other countries that if you are doing business over there, that you are going to have to explain what you're doing in case you're through the supply chain. You are doing something that is going to impact the sustainability of the various countries and other things. And that you're going to, in the next few years, you're going to have liability if you can't have this documentation. So this is definitely an area that needs to be researched, depending upon what it is that you're doing. Again, in terms of the SaaS side as well.
I'll hit those. We can kind of group these together a bit, 5, 6, and 7. So also they kind of go to number 10 as well. So you are responsible for what, you hired someone to run your cloud infrastructure. You may have some recourse and some remedies there if something goes wrong, but you're still quite responsible. So a regulator, a lawyer, A judge might find that someone that you do business with was damaged as a result of the business you've done with them, and you may say, oh, well, no, it was this third party that did it. Or no, it was we hosted the data in the cloud and our cloud service provider messed it up. Or, oh, no, we're using open source software, but we used the wrong there's a bunch of different licenses with open source software, the attribution, the commercialization of it. You know, these things are trends that weren't necessarily there 4 or 5 years ago, but those are things that you got to look at in today's day and age. So open source compliance, software as a service, either you're offering that software, you're creating liabilities for yourself and others, or you're using that software, you're creating potential liabilities for yourself and others. Regulatory change, this is a trend. It's a trend in the states, it's a trend at the federal level. One of the things we're trying to do at DARA is sort of coalesce things and create something like a sandbox where entrepreneurs can kind of find a trusted source of advice and data so that they can pursue business either across states, internationally, in North America. And there's just a lot of stakeholders there, and your compliance officer would really want to keep an eye on what's going on change. So do you want to hit the resilience?
Yeah, operational resilience and the regulatory change management sort of are similar but different. I mean, it's sort of like having a fire drill. Do you know your way out of the house so that way everyone stays safe? You know, knowing what to do in case of a breach, this is really important. And also, if let's say, heaven forbid, you had, and I've known a number of companies where their bank accounts were shut down, what's your backup plan? Because you still need to do business. And I know of a major Bitcoin company that a few weeks before their conference, they were shut down. They were able to switch over. But, again, this is operational resilience. You need to always think about what's your backup plan, even if you don't need to use it.
We are near the end. Amazing. Okay, so here's some of our outlook for 2025. This comes from some of the regulators that we work with, or some of the lawyers that we work with that advise companies in different jurisdictions. DAOs are going to be increasing in relevance. There's also going to be continuing development around like the legal implications or the frameworks in which you coalesce around an idea. You may have heard that you're going to be personally liable for the activities of the DAO. That's a conversation that maybe has been happening over the last 24 months. But we'll see international business, corporate persons, and the relevance to business coming through in these decentralized autonomous organizations. Stablecoins, you already know, here in this state, they're seeking to put forward what they're calling a stable token. Stable tokens are amazing. Stable tokens are not necessarily a CBDC, which the Secretary of State talked about how controlling and terribly oppressive those can be. However, if I were using a token that was backed with dollars or a basket of other goods and presented to me by the wonderful people of the state of Wyoming versus the central bank that I know is responsible for a bunch of bad actions and inflation throughout all of history, I might be inclined to use a token or a stable dollar equivalent token that comes from a state like this state. But this isn't the only state that's going to be developing these tokens. Other states, other groups, other bodies, you already know about them, Circle, Tether, Maker, DAO, DAI, and there'll be more and more quote-unquote stable tokens coming out in 2025.
So with legislation and bills, we have multiple levels. We have the federal level, and in fact, the House passed the Financial Innovation and Technology for 21st Century Act. Again, that's just the tip of the iceberg that's needed. But you also have the state sides, and the states can be the models because they can be their own internal sandbox, and then others can copy and duplicate and do, and that's what Wyoming is doing. But again, if you have inconsistency in these in the terminology and the vocabulary, then it becomes difficult, and we've experienced that. The revolving doors, again, crypto business, public sector, regulatory bodies. You start a business and you ask for guidance, and then you get different guidance, and then it's again, you don't have anyone that's taking responsibility necessarily for an answer, and then you struggle as a business.
Let me expand on that piece a little bit. So what's happening is that executives from these successful companies, just as you know, are going into public service, or they're going into an agency that oversees the industry, and that's oftentimes how a lot of things work. I was going to bring up the Obamacare and some very interesting parallels between what happened with electronic health records and the way the data is stored and now, but maybe we don't have time for that. But the point of that is that we're going to see more people going from the private sector to the public sector, right? They're going to become administrators, they become leaders of the agencies, and the agencies may leave and go get a really high-paid job that's making $30 million at a place like Coinbase. Right, so this is already happening. It's going to continue to happen. So that's kind of what we're describing as the revolving door. We talked a little bit about the comprehensive frameworks. We should probably see some comprehensive frameworks. If you're doing business in the EU, they have MiCA. They have this, guidance that covers every single place in which they have jurisdiction that you can really count on. Here in the United States, we don't have that. We have 50 different states with 50 different rules with multiple different agencies, and hopefully more comprehensive U.S. frameworks is going to be a trend in 2025. Do you want to hit this last piece, Jacqui?
So, in terms of, again, the idea that compliance and the financial costs are rising. If you look at other communities, the cost is less in Asia and in other communities because of the fact that their countries and their communities are actually more open to the innovation. So they would rather have the innovators work through their challenges instead of regulating it and saying, don't do this. So it's more after the fact that they might regulate, but as a result, the cost of compliance is lower, which means you can actually put it into your company and the growth.
Okay, we made it, and we still have time to go see Caitlin Wong's speech. So if you would like a free membership to BLI, just mention that you were at the speech. If you would like to join this expansive group, which is focusing on comprehensive regulation for the United States, that's Dollar.Foundation. And we really don't want to do questions because we'd rather everyone go to the next speech. So
But thank you guys for being here.
Cheers.